I went to school in Bedford, England, with a guy by the name of John Hudson. And about 8 years or so back, I mean, we've gone our separate ways, but we'd both worked at Texas Instruments for a while and various other places. And he called me up one day and he said, Steve, we're starting this new company that builds software-defined radios. And we're selling them from our website, but we think there's a much bigger market in the US. Can you set up a distribution channel for us? I said, yeah, no problem. Well, I hadn't really done anything with ham radio for years. I used to dabble in shortwave, but I did my research and I found a company called HRO. You guys use HRO? Yeah. Never heard of them? And no, I met them, I talked to them, they were really nice people, and we signed a deal with them, and they've been distributing our products ever since, and we're very happy to do that. So that's how I got here. I would like to thank you for having me up here to talk to you today. As I was just saying a while ago, when you watch my videos online, they only last for 20 minutes, and you can turn them off at any point. Oh, who fell down? When you see me in person, you're stuck listening to me for about an hour. But I noticed that Mark, or whoever was responsible for setting up the schedule today, how do these things work? I'm not going to mess with it. He put me on right after lunch. And the HRO store up in Milwaukee do a thing called Superfest every year in September. And they always put me on the first thing after lunch. And they got this big room. They got this, it's a huge store. It used to be AES Electronics. And they got this huge room at the back, which is like part warehouse, part meeting room. And they got all the chairs in there. So they say, Steve, come in and give us a talk right after lunch. They turn the lights down. And within 30 seconds, I'm having to say, look, I know you want to sleep. I don't blame you, but can you please keep the snoring down? So I'll try not to send you to sleep today. I am sure that a good number of you here in this audience know all about software-defined radio already, or at least know what the term is, or you probably own some SDR radios of some sort. So you'll have to forgive me if I cover stuff that's well known to you already. And Mark's going to tell me how I can get the presenter view back on this thing over here.
Oh, that'll just be whatever is on there.
Okay, so I don't get to see the presenter view. Swine.
I'll see if I can.
Okay, this is cool because I don't know what order the slides are in. So anyway, let's get on with this because I don't have too much time. Is this thing supposed to click?
Right. The other side.
It's these little arrows. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I don't know how much we'll get through. A little bit about the basics. What I really like to address here mainly is the applications. As I mentioned, I come from an SWL background. I was gone for a long time. I came back and I found there are things like digital modes, and there's people transmitting from the International Space Station. They're doing all sorts of weird stuff that I knew nothing about. And I don't know, I would like to think that I can at least find one application that you guys don't know anything about at some point today. But it really got me interested in getting back into the hobby again. Hardware, that's where I give you a shameless sales pitch for SDRPlay's family of receivers. I'm going to try and go through that real quick. Then I'm going to talk about the software because you can't talk SDRs without the combination of software and hardware. PAN adapters, I'm going to talk about as well. So a very common application for our receivers is to pair them up with an existing transceiver. And I've got one hooked up to, for example, a Kenwood TS590 SG, which is a pretty nice radio, but it doesn't have any of the fancy displays. But what it means is now I could look at the RF spectrum and I can see where the signals are. I can click on the signals and it will tune the Kenwood to that frequency and I can talk to somebody. It's like it's giving a blind radio eyes. And I've had so many people come up to me, they go, I'm never going back to using it without. No one wants to just spin the knobs anymore. And I'm going to talk about that because it's such a common application. And then we've got lots of support and information and so on. The copy of my presentation is going to be available to you anyway online from your website or what have you. So I may go through these fairly quickly. But At any point, if something is of interest to you and you want me to amplify on it, please raise your hand. I'll take questions as we go. I'm not going to make you wait until the end and try and remember what the hell it was you wanted to ask me. And if I can give you a short answer, I will. If I can't give you a short answer, I'll either put it off to the end if I haven't run out of time, or I'll get to it later. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know the answer. I'm well practiced at saying that because there's a lot of things I don't know the answer to. So let's dive in here real quick. There we go. What is an SDR? SDR is just a technique. Okay, so there's really no SDR as a thing. Okay, you were looking at the Flex Radio thing on the screen here at the end of lunch. Flex Radio, they make extremely good radios based on SDR techniques, software-defined radio techniques. And they use it and they go all out for high performance. So what you're doing with an SDR when you use those techniques is you're trying to get rid of a lot of the imprecise analog components we used to have in the good old days. And if any of you aspire to be my age, you'll remember the days when we had radios that were made out of vacuum tubes. They had those funky little tuning capacitors, you know, the ones with all the plates that go in and out. And you had all these inductory things, and you had ferrite cores, and you tune slugs in and out. Well, all that stuff's gone. And what you can do is by doing everything in software, you can make it more precise, not subject to drift, and so on and so forth. So people like Flex, they do that to build really nice transceivers, although at the end of the day, they still want to have great deal of selectivity because that you're transmitting and receiving on a particular frequency, and you want to block out anything on the outside. Our technique is a little bit different because we're making receivers, and what we want to do is we want to give you the biggest window on the radio spectrum we can. So we use the same techniques in a different fashion to achieve a different objective. Interestingly enough, software, of course, is the key. Again, with our receivers, what we've done is we've tried to leverage the CPU power that you already have in a PC, laptop, what have you. So we're just selling you the hardware bit you need to connect to the antenna, and then we're going to digitize that information and throw it to the PC and let the PC do it. What does that mean? We can keep the cost down. If you're someone like Flex, you're going to put the CPU embedded in the receiver itself, so you have an all-in-one solution. And what does that mean? They can charge you an arm and a leg for it. SDR techniques are increasingly common. I'm sure you're familiar with like the ICOM 7300. That uses a lot of DSP techniques. They use it primarily, they get better performance, but also for them, it saves them cost. They're able to get a lot of cost out of the system. And that's why it's such an affordable radio. And whatever that Yaesu thing that came out recently, the 710, is that the one? It's very, very reasonable price. I like the price of that. HRO had a sale on them. I almost bought one myself. And I said, Steve, stop it. You know. So basically, that's what an SDR is, a technique. And I'm going to show you what these techniques allow you to do that maybe with using more conventional hardware we couldn't do in the past. And my other goal is, I should ask, who owns an SDR here? See, all of you do already. People are becoming better educated, but my goal has always been, if you don't have an SDR, I want you to at least go out and buy one. And I don't care if you buy one of mine or whether you buy an RTL dongle for $10 or what you do, because I know once you get one, it's like a gateway drug. You know, you're going to get hooked. If you already have one, then I think you need to add to your collection. Okay, so am I going the wrong way? Here we go. Hey, I got it going now. Top 10 list. Who remembers David Letterman? Everybody used to, and I realize a lot of people nowadays have never heard of him. So here's the top 10 list specifically for our receivers. They're true general coverage receivers, 1 kilohertz to 2 gigahertz. I'm not sure there's any other radio out there that's got that coverage span. I talked about pan adapters. It's really cool that you can monitor or listen or work one frequency, but look at the rest of the band and see when it's active. Or depending on the time of year and time of day and all that stuff, you can work one band and look at some other bands and see when they become active. So you don't miss anything because it's all right there in front of you. I talked a bit about improving the performance, digital signal processing techniques, good filters. I mentioned use your existing computer, multiple VFOs. You can have, within the coverage span, you can have almost an infinite number of independent receivers. So you can use one for voice. You could use one and run it through a CW decoder. You could use another one and run it for an FT8 decoder, for example. Another one could be decoding SSTV, all at the same time. You can record the spectrum and tune it later. And the nice thing is, if you if you record the entire spectrum, when you come back and play it back, it's just like it was live. You tune through the band just as if you were doing it in real time. Some people may not think that's a good thing, but especially for people that do like AM DXing and stuff, you know, they'll record like plus or 5 minutes from the top of the hour, and then come back and tune through the band and try and identify all the stations. Let's see. New applications. This is my favorite bit, all these different modes we have. But then the number one reason, can you ever have too many receivers? Does anyone think you can? If so, please leave the room. Application examples. I'm probably way behind time already. Yep, I'm halfway through and I've only done the beginning slide. So I'm going to go through this real quick, but just to give you some ideas. This was all new to me. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with FLDigi. You're probably using it with your existing receivers, but it's one of a number of different applications out there for sending digital messages. You can decode WeFax, so you can get weather maps. And this was kind of blowing my mind away. It's like, because we were selling it in these little $100 boxes and people could do all this good stuff. So, but it got better. What's that? I do. We'll see. I'm very good at adjusting it. HF WeatherFax. This is our software, SDR Uno. And we've got I think he's using the Black Cat software. It's a little outfit out of Florida. They make some very good software. Most of what I'm showing you here is free. Black Cat software is not free. You have to pay for that software for a license, but it's not that much. And this picture was done by my colleague, Mike, who someone asked me about, who worked for us. He used to live up in New Jersey or somewhere. Then he moved down to Florida. Now he's moved back to upstate New York, but he is alive and well. I think he's on the run. Yeah. Multi-PSK. Anyone here use multi-PSK? Because if so, you're a better man than me. I've got it installed. I can't use it. I find it way too complicated, but it does enable you to decode a lot of different digital encoding schemes. A lot of people like it. And DX Atlas is another piece of software from the same people that do OmniRig for rig control and stuff. And this is Mike plotting some contacts down there in his Florida days. So that's pretty cool, yeah. WSJTX. I love WSJTX. I bet a lot of you guys use that. It's so simple, even I can use it. And I can get decodes. I probably don't have enough time, but I don't know how it's going to work out. But when I get out of here, I have got my laptop set up so that I can connect to a server I've got running down in Colorado Springs. And it works on a very small bandwidth. I've even done it over my phone before now. And I have done remote decoding of FT8 signals over the network using our new software. In some cases, I've even done it from my colleague, John Hudson, back in the UK. And I think that's kind of neat. And then Grid Tracker, if you've not seen it, is another great piece of software where you can, again, you can plot your contacts on there. So that's all good stuff. You guys knew about all this already, right? Yeah. CSV user list browser. Now, Mike tells me this is one of the finest pieces of software for hams that he's ever encountered. Usually they put this window up a lot bigger. It's a bit complicated to set up, but it has tons of capability. So if you're big into this, making contacts on HF or what have you, I suggest you check out CSV user list browser. It's a really nice piece of software. Anyone here use it? Boy, you guys have got a lot to learn, you see. You're gonna have to go away and look up all this good stuff. Okay, here's another one. Who was the gentleman that owns a RSP Duo? Ah, there you are. One of the nice things you can do with the Duo, because it's got two tuners, you can tune widely separated frequencies at the same time. You may have done this. On the left, we're running SDR Uno, and we're decoding 1090 megahertz, which is the broadcast frequency of aircraft transponders. And then we got a little plug-in that shows you aircraft that it's picking up. And then that in turn can connect to virtual radar, which is another piece of free software, and it will plot on the map. Actually, I realized I updated this slide because it's got my credit on here now. And sure enough, that's where I live, right there. And here's Aurora. So we got to be over here somewhere, right? So you can see my splats, as they call them, go out quite a ways. But for some reason, I can't seem to see the Denver airport. And Colorado Springs Airport is pretty much shielded from me by terrain. But with the Duo, you can do this, and you can use the second tuner and tune it on VHF and listen to air traffic control. So you can watch these guys roaming around on the map, and you can hear what they're saying, which I think is cool. Ham Radio Deluxe. Any user of Ham Radio Deluxe? Yeah, we got a couple here. Mike Carper. It's his software. You can sync that with SDR Uno as well. It's a bit painful. I wrote a couple of app notes showing you how to do it. A lot of people like the logbook that comes with it. They use it for logging. Other people like the DM780, which is the digital decoding module. So you can use that with our receivers and with our software. This is where I really started to get my mind blown. There was a guy lived just north of me in Dallas, and what he liked to do, he liked to make those weird screwy antennas, and he'd make them himself, and he'd just mount them on tripods by his pool in his backyard, and he'd be picking up all these NOAA weather satellites on 137 megahertz. Using a piece of software that's quite popular for that is WX to IMG. I didn't realize, but it's no longer developed, but it's still available. And one of our users down in Florida, I think, Bill Otten, got this picture of, I forget which hurricane, Hurricane Dorian, about to zap Florida a few years back. And again, the RSP-1 was our entry-level receiver. It was sold for $99 on sale at HRO, and it does this. Blows my mind. And then we've got the GO satellites. So my friend Byrne, that lived up just north of me, they're up at 1.7 gigahertz, and they give you the entire sphere of the planet, and you can get different false color interpretations. And it's just unbelievable, unbelievable stuff. So if you haven't done that, I suggest you give it a go. You don't really need that sophisticated an equipment to do it. Certainly for the NOAA stuff at 137 megahertz. My little discone might even manage it on a good day. This is about as far out as you can get. Someone actually was using his RSP to pick up radio signals from Jupiter. Now, I think the trick here was in the receiving dish more so than the receiver, but the fact is it's yet another application. So these are some of the things that I didn't know existed. And this is really the core message of what I'm doing here today is I want you guys to see this stuff and feel like you want to go and explore some of that, because, you know, ham radio is a lot more than it used to be in my day. It's not just, you know, talking on 40 meters or 20 meters or whatever. And it's not just picking up a handy talkie and talking on 2 meters or 70 centimeters these days. There's a whole lot more. And of course, I saw that demo that was here when I walked in. I guess that's the Rocky Mountain Network thing that you guys have got going. That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, you know, there is something for everybody in this hobby. And no one's really an expert in all of it. But you pick something and you go with it, and you can go down that rabbit hole as far as you like. And it's a lot of fun. Another goodie, the SDR Uno's got a logging capability built in. So it can measure RF power level and signal to noise ratio. And we're one of the few software packages where it's actually calibrated. So when you read, whoops, when you read the signal strength, go back. When you read the signal strength up here, you probably can't read it. I barely can. It's in dBm. So it's dB reference to 1 milliwatt at the antenna input to the device. So there are gain tables in the software. So if you read that, that is a true power level. It's not like some dB as a ratio of full scale to the A to D or anything like that. It's real. It's calibrated. So you can measure signal to noise and power level at intervals, save it to a spreadsheet, and then analyze it later. We had one guy, he worked for a radio station somewhere. And you know that the radio and TV stations, they publish little contours around their antennas to show what the signal strengths are. Well, he decided what he was going to do is he was going to fly his RSP on a drone. And he was flying this thing on a drone to get those signal contours, which I thought was really cool. And here's another one. This is written by a guy called Steve Andrew down in New Zealand. I think he's a Kiwi, not an Aussie. And it's spectrum analyzer software. It's a free download. Again, it works with our RSPs. And basically, this is equivalent to, you know, like an HP Agilent spectrum analyzer you buy off the shelf for several $1,000s, and the software is free. So you can do it for all sorts of testing purposes. I think he's working on building a tracking generator to go with it right now. He's got his own Facebook group. So if you do anything, if you play with building filters and you want to measure the performance and stuff like that, get this piece of software. Again, it's not going to break the bank. It's free. Okay, hardware. Oh, this is time for the sales pitch. There is a whole bunch of stuff that's out there, starting at the low end, the 8-bit dongles. I've seen them as low as $10 at swap meets and stuff. They've only got 8 bits resolution, but they work. They're good for VHF and stuff like that. They don't have huge coverage range. They tend to overload because they've only got 8 bits, so they don't have much headroom for strong signals. But if it gets you into it, get into it. Then we move up. We got what I call the general purpose SDRs, and I'd put us and I'd put AirSpy in that category, where we've got more dynamic range. We've got a wider coverage range, and they're great general. It's like the Swiss Army knife of our hobby. Everybody should have at least one, and you can do all sorts of good stuff with it. And then depending on your area of interest, you can go up to the high end, and I think I picked a flex radio here just for grins, but they are much more specialized in what they tend to do. You know, you won't find a flex radio that goes 1 kilohertz to 2 gigahertz, but for what they do, they're brilliant. They're probably the best radios out there. And they also, you've heard of current sinks and stuff? When you buy a flex radio, that's a money sink. So they know they've got a good radio, they know it's good, and they charge to suit. So, you know, you'll go down some rabbit hole sooner or later, but we think we're hitting a nice sweet spot right in the middle. Enough of that. So when you want to buy an SDR receiver, here are things you want to consider. I talked about frequency range a lot. ADC resolution higher is better, but be careful. There's a lot of deceptive practices about how many bits of resolution are needed. It's like, oh, this is 16 bits. Well, is it really 16 bits in your application? You know, generally more is better, but you can get too carried away. And once the LSB, the least significant bit of that A to D, is below your noise floor, it's pointless. You're not gaining anything except maybe a little bit of overload. Instantaneous bandwidth, that's the width of the slice of the spectrum you can look at a given time. And for a receiver, wider is better. For most transceivers, certainly narrower is better, right? Pre-selectors, this is a lesson we learned the hard way. Because we're trying to look at a large swathe of the spectrum, there is a risk that you'll get mixing products from strong signals outside that range that will get mixed up into the frequency of interest. And the way to get around that is to improve the pre-select filters. And every new model we've introduced has had progressively better pre-selectors on it. Software, there's a lot of software out there. Some people only like to use the manufacturer's software. Other people have a favorite package, be it something like HDSDR or SDR console, and they want to use it with the radio. So choice is yours. And of course, price is always a factor. Okay, next. Okay, I'm not going to go through this. This is just a list of all the key features of all our radios. I've already talked about wide coverage. They can look at 10 megahertz of spectrum at a time. They work with all sorts of good stuff. We've got our own Windows software for it. Now we have our own multi-platform software for it, which is great because I'm a Mac guy. It runs on Mac, Linux, you name it, even Windows. My demo would consist of hooking that to a remote server running on a Raspberry Pi. The client server stuff is built into our new software. Okay, I work for SDRPlay, but I'm really retired and it's a part-time gig. And the fact of the matter is, if I didn't work for them, I'd probably buy the company, you know, like the old shaver guy. I already showed you how you can use it as a spectrum analyzer or a power meter. And we do have an awesome support community. I like to think as a company, we're probably the most responsive ham radio company out there. I don't know if any of you had to deal with this before or not, but the word we get is that we're good and we don't want to rest on our laurels. We want to stay good, but we've got some user communities out there. We've got Facebook groups with over 10,000 members. And a lot of those applications I showed you, we didn't come up with those. We threw out this general purpose radio and all these clever users like people like you got this and said, well, I wonder if I can do this with that. And they did it. And I showed you the results. It's awesome what you can do. What am I doing time-wise? Oh, I'm good. Okay, our family, basically, we got 3 receivers right now with the 4th one coming out soon, ranging from the 1B, which is single input, the DXR2, which I have here, which has 3 inputs, so it's like a built-in antenna switch. And then the Duo also has multiple inputs, but it has 2 separate tuners for doing that widely different frequency tuning or for doing diversity tuning with 2 antennas. Cool stuff. Next is, okay, this just shows that you have the 2 tuners in the Duo. Each can look at 2 megahertz of spectrum. They can't both look at 10 megahertz because we run out of bandwidth over USB to get the data into the computer. But you can monitor 2 bands at the same time. And here's the example I talked about before where we're plotting transponders here and listening to air traffic control over there. Diversity tuning is really, really good. You can use it to null out any interfering strong signals, or you can use it to reinforce a weak signal that you're trying to listen to. A lot of people, they really rave about that capability. This is a new product that should be out by the end of the year. It's our first all-in-one network receiver. So it's a bit like getting one of our existing receivers, but it's got a controller built in. All you need to do is hook it up to either, there's an Ethernet cable, there it is, either an Ethernet cable or put an antenna on here, which is supplied, and hook it up to a Wi-Fi network, and you can access it from anywhere. So it's an all-in-one, set it and forget it. It's great if you have antennas at a remote location and you want to get access to it. This will be coming out probably by the end of the year. It has a built-in web server, so you don't actually have to use our client software with it. You can just use a web browser. And we're working on clients for Android and iOS as well. So for the first time, you can directly, you'll be able to run an app on your phone and see what's going on. So anyway, hope that be out by the end of the year. The price is supposed to be about $500. So it's not that bad. It's like a spare screw for a flex radio. Okay, the software. I mentioned we've got 2 packages, SDR Uno, which is Windows only, the new software SDR Connect, which runs on multiple platforms and it has client and server stuff built in. It is really, I know all the technical terms. SDR Connect is kick-ass software. Okay. But we also work with third-party stuff. SDR Console and HDSDR have been around for a long time. Some of you may have used it with other receivers. We work with that. Cubic SDR and SDR++ are both multi-platform softwares. SDR++ is more recent and has probably got a good life ahead of it, although I think the guy that wrote it is otherwise occupied now, but I did work with him at one point. I even gave him access to my Mac with Apple Silicon for development purposes so that he could verify it worked. Cubic has kind of fallen into disrepair. Charles Cliff was the author, lived up in Canada. I think he just couldn't stand the crap he was getting on social media from various people. Oh, why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? And this is crappy. And it's like, here's a guy doing it in his spare time, giving you the software free of charge. And some idiots get on social media and give him a hard time. I mean, I'm sorry, I got no time for any of that crap. So this is something I was talking about before. Here we've got SDR Uno running. We've got 3 VRXs running. So VRX is virtual receiver, right? So you can have as many or up to 16 actually in Uno within that 10 megahertz of spectrum. But we've got one outputting the demodulated audio to an SSTV decoder. We got another one here going out to WSJTA. In fact, we got 2 of them. So we're looking on 2 different frequencies. I've never really looked in detail to see. I can see that you get some FT8 coming down there. I don't know what happens at 14.23. Anyone know?
Slow scan TV.
Oh, that's where the slow scan TV. All right, thank you. So the other one then is what's on 14095. It just goes to show how ignorant I am. Okay, let me speed it up a little bit because we've got scanners built in, which is really cool. We got memory banks. We got all sorts of good stuff. We got plugins. I showed you the ADSB plugins, so that's really cool. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in SDR Uno, which doesn't exist in the new software yet, but it will. Okay, this is a nice one. Whoops, called Frequency Annotator, written by a guy called Eric Cottrell. And you can download databases, SW-SCEDS file, and it will put little markers on the spectrum showing you what station you're tuned to. Again, another free piece of software. We got schedulers so that you can set multiple recordings ahead of time. Profiles basically collect up all the receiver parameters so you can recall them easily without having to mess around. You know, all these software parameters got so many controls in them, it's a bitch trying to get them exactly how you want them. So we got profiles now. So save a profile and you can recall it anytime. This is Connect. Again, I've mentioned it a few times, but it is cross-platform. Has to be a 64-bit system, but other than that, it can be anything, and it's got server and client built in. None of our software costs you a dime. We've never charged for software. Yes, sir. Well, that's kind of a loaded question. SDR Uno is up to 1.42, and I don't think it's been touched for about a year now. For the simple reason all our resources have gone into Connect. SDR Uno will be yeah, that's DRM. There is a Dream decoder, or there's some Dream software you can get that works with SDR Uno for that. It's very confusing because you've got 1 letter difference between 2 different things, but yes, yeah, it's called Dream. I mean, as you might guess from the DRM letters, and I think there isn't a plugin for SDR Uno for DRM, but there is for DMR. And I think SDR Trunk, which is another multi-platform software, also does DMR. Yeah, DAB, digital audio broadcast, is another one that's all over Europe, but not here. We have plugins for that for SDR Uno, as you might expect from being a British company. But plugins and to come modules for SDR Connect, the specification is public for Uno, will be public for Connect when we get around to it. And we encourage third-party developers to work on those. Yeah.
Professional level software for the device that you know, not free.
No, SDR Uno used to be called Studio One, and it was sold by a guy in Italy. We bought the rights to it and made it free. I don't know of any paid software. Well, there's the packages. The Black Cat does some software packages that work with our radios. They've got something called DX Toolbox. They've got an SSTV module. They've got a WeFax module. They'll sell you a complete bundle. I don't like the term professional because I think SDR Uno is as professional a product as you will get. It's just that it's free in terms of its capabilities. The spectrum analyzer I showed you, that's a very professional package to my eyes at least, but it's free. And I'm running out of time. Can I continue? I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah. PAN adapters. What do I need to talk to you more about PAN adapters other than the fact that it's a very useful application and we've got info about it on our website? So, for example, this is using SDR Uno. Remember those 3 virtual receivers? I set one up on 20 meters, one on 30, one on 40 meters. So I can monitor all 3 bands at the same time. And then there's a rig sync button that appears at the top there. You'll see that one's selected. It's orange. These 2 are white. So I can monitor all 3 of those bands on my computer at once. If I want to work a particular band, I just hit the rig sync button for whichever band I want to work, and it will tune the radio to that frequency. It's pretty awesome stuff. You can also use this to sync up to a rig that doesn't have any built-in decoders. And you can use our receiver as the decoder for the SSTV or you know, I know a lot of radios now that they're beginning to put in the digital decoders. But if you've got an older radio that you like, you can effectively up-spec it to the latest and greatest using this software. Okay, here's some words about it. You can see that on the other. Do protect your receiver. If you've got a transmitter next to a sensitive receiver and you transmit, you will cause the smoke to come out of the receiver. And we all know that these receivers run on smoke, and once the smoke comes out, they don't work anymore. Not only that, worse than that, it's not covered under warranty. So do practice safe transmission. Okay, yeah.
You have to put a tuner in front of one of these to knock out the high power stations.
Usually the pre-selectors do a pretty good job. If that doesn't work, you may need to put an external pre-selector in addition. I lived about 4 miles away from a 50 kilowatt AM broadcast transmitter in Dallas, and it wasn't really that much of a problem. But again, it all depends on what the level is and the relative frequency. So support. We've got a website with tons of good stuff. Lets you download the software. We've got links to third-party software as well. We walk you through installing the software. We've got a searchable applications catalog, literally hundreds of videos and app notes. So if you can't sleep at night and you want a cure for insomnia, go to YouTube and watch one of my videos. 30 seconds, you'll be gone. We've got groups. This is our YouTube channel. We've got playlists. So if you want to see all the videos for SDR Connect, there's a playlist for that. We've got 3 main Facebook groups, one for the SDR Uno software, one for SDR Connect, and another one for SDRPlay in general. We do not run those groups. They are user groups run by users for users. We monitor the groups, we try and help. But if you want to get on there and say nasty things about SDRPlay, you can do that as long as you don't violate the normal Facebook terms. Okay, so, you know, it's honest opinions and help because those people that are actually using the software and doing stuff know a damn sight more about it than I do sitting in my basement down in Colorado Springs. Direct support, we've got all sorts of help stuff in there. We've got flows, and you can open up support tickets. If you go through and do a support ticket, you will get it answered certainly within 24 hours, sometimes almost in real time, because you'll have me here, you'll have Mike Ladd up in upstate New York, and then you've got the guys that are still based in the UK. So we've got pretty much round-the-clock coverage. I do recommend the support tickets, and like I say, it is a matter of pride for us that we respond quickly and help anybody out. Unless you buy a clone from China. China has been cloning our radios. Do not buy them. If you want to buy one, buy it from HRO. They're our only authorized distributor in the US. You can buy them used on eBay and places like that, but you better make damn sure that they're working and that it really is an SDRPlay product that you're getting. Because guess what? We won't support you if you got it from China. Here's some contact information. Actually, I just realized this slide is added. Do not send anything to supportusa@sdrplay.com. That account got spammed so bad that we've deactivated it. So I apologize for not catching that sooner. You can send it to support@sdrplay.com. That's the generic one that still exists. Or if you want to contact me, you can send it to steve.brightman@sdrplay.com. Be warned though, if you send it to me, you're waiting on me to respond. So if I've decided that the leaves are still nice enough to go for one more trip to the high country and I go, I won't be answering emails, okay?